welcome to this edition of Hands Off. My name is Rhett and I'm your host, and we're continuing our series on breaking code silence. Tonight, my guest is Bobby Cook, or Robert Cook. I know I'm going to end up calling you Bobby the whole time, even though it'll say Robert. So thank you for coming on the show and being willing to tell your story. What I'd like to do is start off with just kind of having you do like a quick little intro on who you are and where you're from, the school that you attended, and the number of years that you were there, which kind of is compelling because that's how you and I first connected when we were talking. So go ahead, I'll turn it over to you.
My name is Bobby Cook. I am a stay-at-home father right now. I was sent to a program called Hidden Lake Academy in 2004, and I was there for the longest program in the school's history for 27 months.
That's a long time. Can you share with us, in a synopsis of your story and tell us what it was like being in that school? What were you up against? What were the challenges? And just kind of the overall experience, and then from there, we'll ask some additional questions on top of that.
So I was a stereotypical teenager. I had skipped a couple classes. I had this typical family issues going on, and my family was recommended to an educational consultant who told them that I needed to be placed in a therapeutic boarding school that had theater programs and sports programs for me, and I was sent to Hidden Lake Academy in Dahlonega, Georgia. And from day one, it was just, there was child labor involved, there was physical abuse, mental abuse. We never focused on the issues at hand that we were struggling with. Excuse me, it was a lot of taking your issues and turning them into something else. Mm-hmm. We witnessed a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, and our parents were generally manipulated into believing that everything that we told them was a lie. Everything that the school told them was the truth, and the school hid a lot from the families about what was going on and what we were doing daily.
Yes, and were you cut off from your family?
I was given, let's see here, I was given 1 4-minute phone call a week, and for the first 4 months, I was not allowed to see them. After that, I got a 2 or 3 day visit with my family up until about 16 months in the program, and that happened once every 3 months. I could email them if I wanted to, but only my parents. Okay. I was not allowed to talk to grandparents, anyone.
Right.
And that was until 16 months into the program when they finally allowed me to go home for the first time for an actual scheduled home visit. And then from there on out, I was briefly allowed to talk to family members.
Okay. And how old were you when you walked in the door?
I was 15.
15 years old. Okay. And I'm asking you questions based on, just things that I have heard. And
right.
Was there, did you experience any of like brainwashing seminars and denial of food, sleep?
Yeah, they the way that they ran the program was based off of I can never pronounce the group right, but I think it was Sinanan.
Okay.
And SEDU, which for us, food, if you were in trouble, you got a moldy cheese sandwich, you got staff would chew food and spit it out in front of you and tell you that you could eat it.
Oh.
They would, sleep was more of the effect of if someone was in trouble, all lights were on in your room, the door was open, and they had night security coming and checking on you every hour and waking you up and making sure that you were in your rooms. The seminars, they did a lot of trying to find the right word for it, almost reverse psychology. They had us do things, me particularly. There was a girl in the school who had a crush on me, and I had to get in front of over 200 people and tell her that I would never be physically attracted to her. I would never find her as a partner in life. They would make us sing songs like Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror to try to make us feel better about ourselves. They would hold you in their arms and rock you and whisper positive affirmations in your ear, but never focus on your actual therapy.
Okay. And all the while, you're supposed to be getting an education. Am I correct? Like,
which was severely lacking, but yes.
Yeah. Whose idea was it to send you away to a school?
So I was in a traditional preparatory boarding school in Connecticut, and I'd skipped a couple classes, and I was struggling in biology, and the school that I was at recommended that my parents do a psych evaluation on me. And I was sent to an educational consultant afterwards who recommended that school, and my parents agreed with her.
Okay. So you're living in Connecticut, you're going to regular traditional school, so to speak, and then struggling a little bit, but would you have classified yourself as a troubled teen?
I had some anger issues based off family relationships, based off my own personal relationship with my biological mother, and those had interfered in my life, but I didn't think that I was so far gone that I needed a school like HLA.
Yeah, and I guess it's always easier to look backwards, but
right.
at 15 years old, how would you possibly even know that, you know what I mean? Like, it's very hard. And
I had no clue what I was walking into.
Exactly, right. And I know just from, doing this series that your parents probably didn't know much of what you were walking into, or at least whatever they were told.
They had no clue. In all reality, when I was taken there, I basically knew where I was going. We had been told what the school was. We had seen the brochures, but from the second I stepped out of the car, I was grabbed and strip searched and told that I wasn't going to be talking to my family again. And those were not things that we had been aware of.
And who took you?
There were two staff members. There was a male and a female staff member that took me into a bathroom and made me strip my clothes down. They made me cut my testicles, squat, cough, jump around in a circle. They went through every belonging that I brought with me to the school and laid the ground rules for me.
And your parents dropped you off, or did somebody transport you there? And
my parents physically drove me up there because we only lived about an hour away from the property.
Okay. All right. And so after they drop you off, the two people take you off, and your mom and your dad, they go. That's it.
Yes.
And then you're just kind of left to your own, to figure it out as this stuff is happening to you.
Right. That's exactly what happened. My family had visited the property before, but the school had a knack for when prospective families were coming, they dressed up the campus. They made it look like the kids were all having fun. And it wasn't what the place really was. And so they, as you said, they literally just dropped me off. They went on their way, and I was thrown to the wolves.
Yeah. And can you describe what that first night was like for you?
That first night was terrifying, to be honest. There were staff members abusing children. They were hitting them, kicking them. There were kids that would find any way they could to get high, so they were snorting laundry detergent, running around the halls screaming. A lot of children had night terrors, so it was just a lot of loud noises and violence in the middle of the night.
And how soon did you realize that this is not what was presented to you?
The next day during my first therapy session.
Wow. And what about that session made you realize this?
When I sat down, the first thing they told me was that I was there to focus on Adam, not Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Wait, say that again?
They laid the ground rules for me. There was no relationships with the females. There was 17 hours of group therapy a week. I was told if I got in trouble that I would be put into a male line, girls in one line, guys in the other, and that we would be doing child labor around the campus.
Okay. Were you ever physically harmed?
Me personally, no.
Okay, but you witnessed it.
I witnessed numerous accounts of children being hurt.
Okay. And was there ever a time where you were put into solitary confinement?
We all ended up in solitary at one point. It differed per student depending on how much they fought the program.
Okay.
So my solitary confinement was 2 or 3 hours, maybe.
Okay.
A lot of children had nights in the headmaster's house in the basement. There was a area they called super restrictions, which was a gazebo in the middle of the woods, and they put you out there with a sleeping bag and no pad, and you had to shower in the creek, and you could be out there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Whoa. And do you think, like, when you finally spoke with your parents for the first time, I know that I'm sure calls were monitored, any emails or letters that went out were monitored, but were you trying to tell them that you wanted out?
There was no option to that.
There was not. No option to tell them or no option to get out of there?
There was no option to tell them. The moment any staff saw any sign of a child trying to quote unquote manipulate their parents, they hung up the phone.
Okay. And this is always the part that bothers me the most, because you would think at that point that that would be something that the parents would be like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, what is going on?
I agree, but you know, the sad part is that our parents had basically signed over guardianship.
So I did want to ask that as a question. So I know that some were signed over, 51% of their parental rights were given to the estate. Did that happen with you too?
Honestly, I don't know. My parents have never talked about that.
Okay. This is one of the things with this show that we always, you know, really focus in on, is to ask individuals, what do you think contributed to you getting through that? Like, how did you get over all that?
There was multiple factors. The people that the students that I was there at the school with, I've created a lifelong bond with.
Okay.
Even though we were pitted against each other, a lot of us found a way to make friends that helped us get through. And then in therapeutic terms, I learned how to play the game. I learned how to tell them what they wanted to hear. Mm-hmm. I learned how to kiss up to the right person. And I learned how to make my life easier by just playing that game.
Sure, to survive, absolutely.
Yes.
All right, well, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Bobby, and he's going to just kind of like fill us in and talk a little bit about like what is life like now, having gone through such an experience. And, you know, we'll be right back.
Listen, what will make your event simply beautiful? Is it your attire, your decorations, your entertainment? Well, join me, Alicia Simone, as I chat with some amazing vendors and clientele who will share their stories and images and their experiences. Right here on RVN TV, Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. and Wednesday at 4 p.m. It will be simply beautiful. See you then.
welcome back to Hands Off and my guest, Bobby Cook. We are continuing on with our conversation about breaking code silence. It's a series that we've been doing for a number of weeks. And before we went to break, Bobby was talking about his experience. And, you know, it's interesting because there's like a common thread that I see through interviewing individuals, and it is the bonds with the people that you are experiencing this with, fellow classmates. That is almost always the number one thing that people say that contributed to them getting through it. So what I wanted to ask is, do you have a relationship with your family now, like your mom and your dad, and like what does that look like today?
So after I left HLA, I had some issues, not just being prepared for the world in the right way. And for about 8 years, we had a very strained relationship. Now that I'm older, we progressed, we've sat down and talked, we've able to move forward and build a healthier relationship than we had beforehand.
Do you ever speak about being at Hidden Lake Academy?
With my guardians that sent me there, yes. With the rest of the family, no. It's a very taboo subject.
It really is. How about that? And do you have any idea why it's a taboo subject?
Partially because they really haven't looked into what happened there, and they're still on that fence of, we sent you there for a reason. How do we know you're telling the truth?
Oh, my goodness. And how many years has it been since you've been out?
Let's see here, 16.
Wow. Okay. And what do you see the effects from being in a school like that and being treated the way that you were? Do you see those effects come through now in your adult life? Like, what is that? How is that experience for you?
Yeah. So since leaving HLA, I had very little self-confidence. I had very, very large trust issues. I started experiencing anxiety attacks, panic attacks almost daily, nightly, night terrors from, things I had witnessed there. And they've continued, for the past 16 years.
Yeah. Have you ever addressed it professionally with someone, or?
Yes, I've gone to therapy numerous times. I'm on anxiety medication now.
Yep.
We've tried different routes, but the effects of what I saw there, it's not easy to get those out of your head.
Absolutely. And to be clear, the brainwashing type of seminars that
Yes.
take place, it stays with you.
It really does. Some of the things that they had me do in those programs really struck a chord with me and have never left me.
Yeah. Is there, and if you're not comfortable with answering this, that's fine, but is there one thing in terms of that piece to it that stands out in your mind, like the first thing that you think of?
The first one that I always think of is we had a program called the Phoenix Challenge. And we were set on a stage and we were each given 3 tasks that we each had to complete. And the first one that I had to do was I had to wear 10 articles of clothing and take each one off in front of the whole school and tell them how each article of the clothing represented a part of my addictive personality in a group that I was trying to fit in with. Then I had to talk to that young lady and tell her I wasn't interested. And then the one that really hit me the most was I had just found out that the guy that I thought was my biological father wasn't. And they had me write a letter to him the day after I found out and read it in front of the whole school, expressing my emotions towards it.
Oh, man. Wow. Oh, hello. And the reason why I say that is because, you're still digesting it yourself, and then you're going to have to publicly speak about it. That is.
I hadn't even processed the information. They forced me to write a 5-page letter and read it in front of 200 people.
Wow. That is unbelievable. So the fact that you're sitting here today and being able to speak about this is phenomenal. So I just want to go on the record of saying that. So
Appreciate it.
What does life look like for you today? Do you have children? Are you married? Are you what?
So I've been married for 7 years, going on 8 now. I have 3 children who are my life. I'm a stay-at-home father. I run the local chapter of Chive. I'm in a bearded charity group. I do charity work now and spend time with my children.
That's awesome. And what made you want to speak out?
Knowing that programs like this were still open and seeing other people come out and be able to talk about their stories gave me the courage to be able to speak up on my own and really want to do something about making sure that other children in the world don't ever have to experience this again.
So that brings up a really good point. So my one question that I want to stem off from that is Hidden Lake Academy still open and operating, or no?
No, so it went through a class action lawsuit that was settled out of court. And I know the school had closed and changed names a couple times, but from my understanding in 2011, the staff had stopped getting paid and they just stopped going to the campus, and the kids rioted, and they were their parents were notified saying they had 2 days to get their children out of the school.
Unbelievable. Yeah, as with many of these schools, they typically shut the doors and then they reopen as another name. And some of them are still in operation. There's really nobody governing any of this, which is shocking to me. And and it's interesting because I know you have your story written out. You shared that out with me too. We'll be sharing that as well. When did you write that all out?
About a month and a half ago, I found out that the founder of the school that I was at, who was one of the founders of SEDU, actually lives here in Albuquerque, about 3 miles from me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he's actually still practicing as a licensed therapist in the school systems.
Unbelievable. So when you wrote that out, did you send it to anyone, or was it just for you to get your story out?
It was my personal way to get my story out, and then when I saw Breaking Code Silence becoming bigger, I decided to join that movement and post it on my social media.
Yeah. I totally understand the need to speak out. Breaking Code Silence has been a huge, the stories that just come out of it and the individuals. Do you find it to be healing in a sense that you know that you're not alone?
It's very healing in the sense knowing I'm not alone. It can be a little traumatic hearing these stories because it brings up a lot of memories.
Yes. So that is one of the things too. Whenever I'm working with individuals, or as we share the stories, it is the understanding that some things can be triggering. I'm sure.
Yes.
Reading some of them have definitely been takes you back.
Not even just reading them. I watched a documentary called The Last Stop, and it was exactly what I went through.
Yeah. And how long ago did you watch that?
About a month ago.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing too, is that there's a lot of what I have found in speaking with individuals is that there's a lot of things that come back up that they never even thought of, or things that they had forgotten about or they had suppressed. Have you experienced any of that?
Yeah, there was quite a few things reading stories and watching these documentaries that are starting to come out that brought back psychological or therapeutic tactics that they used that I had completely forgotten about. I'm trying to think of the word to say. There were moments in which I saw exactly myself in these people.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I always like to ask this question. What would you say to somebody that's struggling as a result of attending a school like that? Like, if you had the opportunity, what would you say to them?
I say the same thing I say to the group that I moderate for my school, which has 700 survivors, and you're not alone. There's thousands of us out there. There are countless groups you can join to talk to where people have experienced the same thing as you did, and you will have all the support you could ever ask for.
That's great. And then my other question I like to ask is, if you had the opportunity to speak with parents that are considering putting their child into a facility like that, what would you tell them? Would you tell them don't do it? Would you, like, what would be your approach?
I would tell them not to do it because the short-term effect is not near worth the pain of the long term.
Yeah, 100%. And the reason why I asked that question is because I've heard different answers. I've heard people say, well, they should do their homework, investigate it more. Others take the position of saying no. But I just think that, and always when we get, as we near the end, I always like to go in this direction. So do you hold yourself responsible for ending up in that school?
That's a hard question. I hold parts of myself responsible. Some of my actions that I did, the choices I made, yes, led me there. I'd say that was minimal compared to the influence of others that got me sent there.
Yes. And do you, and again, with the understanding that it's always easier to look back,
right.
Do you feel that, like, with a little bit more effort, an alternative method could have been discovered or put into place? Do you kind of know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So when I look back on it, looking back, my family thought that sending me to even a traditional boarding school would be the best for me, and I look back and think that had my family really just sat me down and talked with me, we had worked through things, they didn't send me away to have other people look after me, that things could have been different.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let me just say this on the closing side of things, that if there's ever a moment that you are questioning your worthiness because of what you went through, I hope that you reflect upon sitting here right now and doing this, that it lets you know that your worthiness is way more than what you possibly even realized right before you. I mean, the mere fact that you got through that, you're an adult now, you're married, you have your own children, it's a testament to who you are as an individual, that you are not defined by what happened to you in that school. And I hope that you know that, because so many people that I speak to that have gone through what you have gone through, their worthiness is, they question it for the rest of their life. And that is not the case, because you are worthy and you matter.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, 100%. I can't thank you enough for doing this, and the reason why I say that is because, what makes this type of work hard in terms of doing interviews and all is because you'll never know the person that you helped out that saw this and realized that they were not alone, and but I assure you, you have helped out somebody just by speaking your voice, and for that, I applaud you for just being here and doing this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So that's our show. Please, honestly, applaud these people that are doing these interviews through this whole series. And we're going to continue on as we hear more of these stories. And I appreciate you tuning in. That's our show.